settled in absolutely beautifully. You know, Nelson's quite elderly. He's must be nearly 18 now. And Siam is probably about 3. So he's a young, feisty guy. We opened the crate and they came out of their little enclosure. That Siam immediately disregarded everyone and went off. He went strolling off and eventually sat under a bush and just relaxed and just thought, you know, I'm alone in Africa. I think that's what he was telling us. Whereas Nelson was more timid because he'd been in this zoo for 15 years. And so this was a really huge experience for him. But the next day when I went up with Glenn, our chief carer there, he was outside in his big enclosure, sitting in the sun. He looked at us for a minute or two and then he looked away, and you could tell he was just fine. I mean, it seems to be, the moment you say something, it buzzes around the world, doesn't it? At such a speed. In the old days, we wrote letters and postcards and emails or rang someone up, but now it's social media. You can get these really important issues literally being responded to within seconds. I have 2 images actually in my head from my childhood. One was when my father took me to London Zoo and we went into the big cat house, and there were the lions. They didn't have an outdoor area, and the lions were all in these cages walking up and down in this. I remember the clang of the door. I can still hear it in my head, the clang of the door going into the lion house and the lions walking up and down. That has never left me. And the second image is actually when I was in South Africa, because I was evacuated there as a child in the war. And a friend of mine at school invited me to go with her and her family to the Kruger National Park for a long weekend. And I saw my first lions sitting under a tree. And I remember that contrast of image. These are the 2 opposite images of life. One I'm totally for and the one I'm totally against. And that has kind of continued now, even to the moment I'm living now. The place which has my heart is Meru National Park in Kenya, because that is where Elsa the lioness, the real one, not the ones in the film, one in the film, was returned to the wild by the Adamsons, where she died and where she's buried. And the whole of Meru, actually, I was there earlier this year. The captive situation for these animals in captivity is very poor or much better, you're still denying those animals and that individual animal the right to be itself, to behave as it is in real life, as it were. It's not real life for the animal in a zoo. I wish we could rescue all the animals in zoos, really, but that's quite impossible. We have a couple of possible rescues for next year, hopefully. But you see, we're limited, certainly in South Africa, at Shamwari, with the permits for the number of enclosures we can make. In the future, just getting our governments to be stronger, our governments not to spend 3 more months discussing whether there should be wild animals in circuses. You can say that tomorrow, there shouldn't be. Grateful for, rather than anything else, is that my husband Bill, my eldest son Will, and I, together as 3 members of our family, started something together inspired by animals, and of course particularly one, Poli Poli the elephant, whose death at London Zoo started our charity. And so it's gratitude that I feel for the animals that in a way are being sacrificed for us. I'm grateful for the fact we've done it we've raised the issue, perhaps in a public way that hadn't quite happened before, because we were crazy actors, as we were described. And what do they know anyway? Which is really quite true. We knew so little when we started, but we made it our business to find out a lot. And I'm still learning. You never stop learning.